When you come to COVID-19, you do have that real question. Do you actually develop immunity after COVID-19? How long does it last? How frequently does COVID-19 mutate into a disease for which the immunity is no use anyway? And will another coronavirus 2021 or 25 come along in the future? I'm Simon Sutcliffe. I'm a physician by training. Much of my time is spent with novel and innovative technologies and also working in the lesser resource world around cancer control, palliative care, various forms of interventions where in Canada we can show some know-how to people who need to develop their systems. So Q Biologics is a privately held Canadian biotechnology company, and it's been working over the last few years on the development of an innovative technology program related to immunology and immune responsiveness. You shouldn't think about disease because the Q technology is not about diseases. It's actually about the biology that underlies the host response to the disease. And with Q, the underlying ideology is this is not really about covering up the symptoms. Clearly, if you control the disease, that's going to be a benefit. But what Q is really all about is how do you control the underlying problem that gives rise to what the patient is actually complaining about. Q's evolution is at an interesting point in time, medically and historically. All of our focus at the moment is on the pandemic, but what we actually also know is it is people who have pre-existing diseases or are undergoing various forms of treatment whose immunity is reduced. They are the people who are particularly susceptible, even age as a function of immunology. They're the people who are very susceptible. So the pandemic is not isolated. The pandemic is tied into the risk factors of the population as it relates to their diseases and their conditions. So what we understand with Q Biologics is when you give the site-specific immunomodulator, its principal action is to reignite, refire up the innate immune system, the very primordial way in which we interact with insults to our body from our environment. And it reignites what it has seen previously back in a past life, but it brings it back up to current reality. And it does that by mobilizing new cells coming out of the bone marrow. It sends signals through chemokines and various targeted signals. And what it's really telling them, and this is a really important piece, is the actions taking place in the lungs, guys, go to the lungs. It's not something's happening, go out there and do something. It's something's happening in the lung. You want the army where the problem is. And so the innate immune response is fired up exactly where the pathology of the disease is actually taking place. And so what it's doing is reawakening the immune system, but focusing it around where the problem is taking place and sending the army to where the action needs to be taking place. What we have actually works on the underlying basis of why these are problems to us. And if we can change that underlying immune responsiveness, reprogram immunology, and bring it up to where a fully functioning, normal, non-infected person stands, then potentially we can address many of those things that are causing the real contemporary challenge that we see with all of these problems together. With Q, we have something that will actually reprogram the immune response, that actually you have the potential to intervene on a whole raft of things that are extremely important. And if you could do that in a way that said we can do this safely, it's actually available and accessible, it will not be hugely expensive, and it can be available whether you live in Cameroon or whether you live in Canada, that has huge potential. It's as if you're saying, it doesn't matter if you're 75 because I'm actually going to change you back immunologically to 45 instead. Could we prevent this disease? And could we establish how it will not actually happen in someone? When you come to COVID-19, you do have that real question. Do you actually develop immunity after COVID-19? How long does it last? How frequently does COVID-19 mutate into a disease for which the immunity is no use anyway? And will another coronavirus 2021 or 25 come along in the future? Even if you had a vaccine, you're going to run into the problem, is that the actual answer? Or is it a step towards a benefit? And to what extent have we got to balance off the need to find the vaccine as well as the need to find a treatment for people who actually get the disease, whether they've had COVID before or not? So in a way, you can't sort of put all your eggs in one basket, because all the diseases don't live in one basket for all the eggs to fill. And you've got to have at the back of your mind, my strategies have got to deal with prevention, they've got to deal with risk, they've got to deal with vaccination, and they've got to deal with treatment. And I think when we come to something like Q and SSIs, you're not going to say you shouldn't be looking at a vaccine. Clearly that's absolutely right. But supposing you say, well, the vaccine actually isn't that effective in the population, and it does need to be repeated and boosted, might you actually say, well, why don't we have a vaccine and Q's SSI? Because if the vaccine is going to be enhanced by the presence of SSI, if more people respond to the vaccine, if the vaccine induces immunity for longer, you're getting a benefit that you wouldn't otherwise have. Well, the reality is people don't care whether it's a vaccine or whether it's a therapy. They want you to get rid of the problem of the disease. And so bringing together things that may work in different ways can be a very effective strategy of saying this will give us more benefits to how we control these problems. You know, it's been 10 years going down the road with Q. In our work, which still is limited numbers of people, but it's very rigorously controlled work. It's genuine science that you can publish, and in that work you can clearly see there is a benefit that is of the same magnitude as things that we currently take as being state of the art, or the treatments that we think are absolutely right for this particular condition. We're dealing with something that is very competitive to and very comparable to the benefits that we can see in the best of circumstances. We're seeing it with a very safe product, a product easy to use, ubiquitous in whether you use it in high resource countries or low resource countries. You're not dependent on the country's economy or your out-of-pocket wealth or whatever it is, and you know that it is safe, and we haven't seen any toxicities. Well, you know, if you were to say, so is it as good as the best thing we've possibly ever had, and could it be available and really have no problems whatsoever? And more importantly, is it likely to actually control my disease as opposed to cover up the reasons that I complain about my disease? So much the better. I mean, yes, in practice, we're ready for prime time.